Well, good afternoon. This is the midday news on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Ashwarya with you, and here are the headlines. Rajya Sabha to discuss working of Ayush Ministry, Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment Bill 2019 listed for introduction. Several matters of public importance raised during zero hour and question hour. Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill 2019 and the Surrogacy Regulation Bill 2019 introduced in Lok Sabha. House to also take up discussion and voting on demands for grants for the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Flood situation in Assam and Bihar remain grim. 15 dead, over 45 lakh people in 37 districts displaced in both states. Rescue and relief operations continue. 7 army men among 8 dead after building collapses in Himachal Pradesh's Solan district. Chandrayaan-2 launch called off due to technical glitch. Indian Space Research Organization says a technical snag observed in launch vehicle system. Revised launch date to be announced later. And England lifts ICC World Cup for the first time in 44 years. In a nail-biting finale, edges past New Zealand on boundary count after Super Over also ends in a tie. Ben Stokes awarded Man of the Match. New Zealand captain Kane Williamson is the player of the tournament. First up, news on budget session of Parliament, and as soon as the Rajya Sabha met for the day today, several matters of public importance were raised during the zero hour. Trinamool Congress's Dr. Santanu Sen raised the issue of overbilling by the corporate bills in West Bengal. And BJP's Satyanarayan Jatia said that interlinking rivers might ensure better flood and drought management and solve water crisis in the country. Besides, Congress's T. Subbarami Reddy and SP Surendra Singh Nagar urged the government to formulate a committee to look into the deaths caused by road accidents on the Agra and Yamuna Expressway. Congress MP Ripun Bora informed the upper house about the grim situation of Assam because of floods in the state.
I want, sir, this type of health regulatory commission which exists in our state of West Bengal should be made in each and every state to regulate on these corporate hospitals, to control these overbillings and out-of-pocket expenditures and extortion by the corporate hospitals.
Thank you. That is your suggestion, good suggestion, that you should leave it to those state governments to act on that by citing, sir. This is done here. It should be followed by others.
So the government of India fixes the rate of royalty on coal and other major minerals for the states. So what we have found is that the government of India last revised the royalty on coal in April 2012. Normally, they have to revise these rates every 3 years, in which case it should have been revised in April 2015. As you know, sir, Orissa, like many other states, are coal-bearing states, and there is a lot of environmental degradation because of extraction of coal. We expected the Honorable CM had made a request to revise this particular rate on coal royalty from 12% existing to 20%. This has not yet been done, even though this was placed before the Central GST Council. Instead, it has been a clean energy cess has been imposed, and as you know, sir, cess goes into the undivisible pool. So the state government doesn't really get anything. So I would like to, through the chair, bring it to the notice of the Honourable Minister, to the central government, that this revision on the royalty of coal needs to be expedited and needs to be done very early, so that the state government, particularly states like Orissa, which depend on very limited resources as far as revenue is concerned.
देश में कहीं सूखा पड़ा है और कहीं बाढ़ है। निश्चित रूप से जहाँ सूखा है वहाँ आदमी भूखा है, और जहाँ बाढ़ है वहाँ तबाही है। नदियों को जोड़ करके इस दोनों समस्याओं का हल निकाला जा सकता है। और निश्चित रूप से हमारे यहाँ तो कहा गया है कि का बरखा जब फसल सुखाने, ऐसी बरसात का क्या करेंगे जब फसल सूख जाएगी, ऐसी बरखा का क्या करेंगे, बरखा का जो फसल बहाना है, और ऐसी बरसात भी क्या काम की जिससे फसलें बह जाए। तो निश्चित रूप से इस तबाही को बचाने के लिए देश में एक लंबे समय से विचार किया जा रहा है नदियों को जोड़ने के बारे में। इसके लिए आयोग भी गठित हुआ है और इस आयोग ने अपनी रिपोर्ट देने का काम भी किया है। हिमालय से निकलने वाली नदियों को दक्षिण में जो बहने वाली नदियाँ उनके साथ जोड़ करके केनाल के द्वारा और इसको जोड़ा जाना चाहिए, ये भी कहा गया है। आज की स्थिति में जो समाचार हम पढ़ रहे हैं उसमें यह है कि असम, त्रिपुरा, मिजोरम, बिहार, पूर्वी
Don't quote newspaper, you say, according to reports, ऐसा one line, हाँ।
तो इससे 18 लाख लोग प्रभावित हुए और असम में 23 जिलों में 11 लोगों की मौत हो गई और 26 लाख लोग प्रभावित हुए। तो ये ऐसी स्थिति से निदान पाने के लिए जो योजनाएं बन गई हैं उनको कारगर रूप से लागू किया जाए।
They immediately one expert central team should be rushed to Assam to guide and help the Assam government, number one. And one responsible union minister must go there and he should take stock of the situation. Sir, for the last 2 years, the Calamity Relief Fund and the Disaster Management Fund due to the Assam government, that has not been released by the central government. So my demand that fund is to be released immediately to the state government. And finally, the flood situation in Assam, it is every year, it is a regular phenomenon, sir. So it should be declared as a national problem. Because, sir, the flood is not, it is Assam, the river Brahmaputra, which originates from China, then it comes to Tibet, it goes to Bangladesh also. So, sir, 3 different countries. This river goes to 3 different countries. So, therefore, this Assam government has not such capacity to deal with the flood problem of Assam, and that is the recurring problem. So, therefore, my demand is, my suggestion is that this flood situation of Assam should be declared as a national problem.
And also in the Rajya Sabha today, Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad will introduce the Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment Bill 2019, which seeks to, change the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. It also aims to establish an independent body called the Arbitration Council of India for the promotion of arbitration, mediation, conciliation, and other alternative dispute redressal mechanisms. It provides for a time-bound settlement of disputes and also accountability of the arbitrator. A previous bill was cleared by Lok Sabha in August 2018, but it could not be passed by Rajya Sabha. The bill lapsed following the dissolution of the 16th Lok Sabha. And a discussion on the working of the Ayush Ministry is also listed in today's agenda. SP MP Ram Gopal Yadav will initiate the discussion and Ayush Minister Shripad Yesu Naik will reply at the end of the discussion. All right, colleague Akhilesh Suman is now joining us on the phone line. Akhilesh, last week, witnessed both houses working extra hours to complete the discussion on budget, and today both houses of parliament assemble after the 2 days break. And talking first about Rajya Sabha, of course, we saw in the morning key matters were raised, including the issue of Assam floods. And what is expected in the post-lunch session now?
I think that the way Rajya Sabha has, been debating the issues, I think post-lunch situation also will be congenial. And I think the way opposition members had raised the issue of Assam and other members also raised the issue relevant to the country, it is really interesting to see that how government comes on the issue, because Assam flood is a perennial issue. Every government, be it Congress government, be it BJP government, they had been facing the situation. But the question of preparedness is there, and Congress is demanding that it should be declared a national problem. So that is one issue that I think came in Rajya Sabha. But, Rajya Sabha is also discussing various other issues. And in that way, I think that post-lunch period will be okay, as far as I understand that whatever legislations are there, discussion on Ayush Ministry. Discussion on Ayush Ministry may be discussed, and Ayush is one ministry that NDA has come up because it wants to give recognitions of our domestic, our indigenous system of medicine and indigenous system of treatment. So I think members may take interest in this, how government has worked, and that government has come up with I think biggest celebration on yoga. So I think all this issue may come up in postal session in Rajya Sabha. Aishwarya?
All right, Akhilesh, just stay with us. We'll just come back to you. We'll also need to discuss about Lok Sabha, because today Lok Sabha will take up a discussion and voting on demands for grants for the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways for 2019-20. Now, demand for grants is an annual expenditure plan of each ministry for the financial year, and it includes provisions with respect to revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, grants to the state governments, loans and advances. And in other legislative business scheduled for the day, the Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill 2019 was introduced in the House today. This bill seeks to amend the Motor Vehicles Act 1988 and aims to increase the penalties on traffic violations, address issues on third-party insurance, regulation of cab aggregators, road safety, opening the public transport sector for private players, and also regulate permits. And besides this bill, the Surrogacy Regulation Bill 2019, which aims to prohibit commercial surrogacy in India, was also introduced in the House in the first half. Now, the bill proposes to regulate surrogacy in India by establishing a national surrogacy board at the central level and also state surrogacy boards. The bill was passed by the last Lok Sabha, but it had lapsed after dissolution of the House. And the National Investigation Agency Amendment Bill 2019 was also taken up by the House for consideration and passing. The bill amends the National Investigation Agency Act 2008, and it provides for a national level agency to investigate and prosecute offences listed in a schedule. The legislation will also allow the NIA probe cyber crimes and also the cases of human trafficking. Further, the Act allows for the creation of special courts for the trial of scheduled offences, and several MPs took part in the discussion in the first half.
NIA को और मजबूत करना चाहते हैं। अलग-अलग देशों में अलग-अलग इन्वेस्टिगेशन एजेंसीज है। पहले तो ये आतंकवाद विषय जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन एंड प्रोसिक्यूशन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के साथ रहते थे, क्योंकि आतंकवाद एक स्टेट का, एक जिला का, एक स्थान का परिमित नहीं है। आतंकवाद इंटर स्टेट का इश्यू हो गया, आतंकवाद इंटरनेशनल का इश्यू हो गया। अलग अलग देशों से आके लोग भारत के अंदर, दुनिया के अंदर आतंकवाद गतिविधि बढ़ाने के लिए प्रयास कर रहे। इसलिए हम इस NIA के बिल को थोड़ा और शक्तिशाली, मजबूत बनाना चाहते हैं।
All right, our colleague Akhilesh Suman is with us on the phone line. Akhilesh, in the Lok Sabha, we saw very important questions raised during question hour. And besides that, three important bills were also taken up, but two key bills were introduced. That is the Motor Vehicles Bill and also the Surrogacy Bill. And of course, there was a discussion on the NIA Bill. Tell us about the importance of these three bills.
NIA is the most important bill, and discussion on this bill is already going on. The way terrorism has spread its wing in different directions and in different, sectors, I think NIA bill wants to also spread the powers and, influence of, National Investigation Agency. And as you mentioned, that human trafficking and offences related to currency, counterfeit currency, manufacture and sales of prohibited arms, cyber terrorism, and also offences under Explosive Substances Act. So I think the government is considering that, the way India has been fighting the issue of terrorism all over the world, it needs to strengthen its own laws. And NIA bill is in a way that NIA should be empowered to consider more issues that are related to terrorism. And that terrorism financing is one of the biggest issues that the world is facing now. And the way Pakistan is under scandal in the terror financing, I think India also wants to underscore that whoever is under this ambit of terror financing, they should be, booked. And counterfeit currency issue is one of the things that is related to terrorism. cyber terrorism is one of the major issues that the whole world is facing now, because through cyber terrorism, they are not only recruiting, but they are also persuading, making the minds of the youth people to become terrorists. So I think NIA bill is going to strengthen the powers and rights of NIA, and I think the government is considering that in this way they can curb the terrorist spread and mindset of terrorism in this country. But other than that, Motor Vehicle Act is also very important.
Yes.
The way our country is facing the explosion of vehicles, so many vehicles are coming on road every day, and in that way there is a need of a stringent law so that traffic situation is controlled and regulated in a manner that it can save the pedestrians. It can also save those people who are senior citizens, like who are unable. So that all these issues are intermingled in such a way that the government thought that there should be a Motor Vehicle Act that should be more stringent on the reckless drivers, and how the vehicles running on roads should not be turned into killing machines. So I think this is also very important as far as public order in this country is concerned.
All right. Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for all those updates on that story. Let's get you some other news now. Indian Space Research Organization, that is ISRO, on Monday called off the launch of India's second mission to Moon, Chandrayaan-2, on board a GSLV Mark III due to a technical snag. Now, the countdown to the launch scheduled for 2:51 a.m. was stopped 56 minutes and 24 seconds before liftoff at 1:55 a.m. following the announcement from the Mission Control Center. ISRO said that a revised launch date will be announced later. The liftoff of the three-component spacecraft comprising an orbiter, the lander and the rover was scheduled from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. President Ramnath Kovind was in Sriharikota to witness the launch. The space agency had earlier scheduled the launch in the first week of January, but later shifted it to 15th of July. The Chandrayaan-2 was supposed to explore the uncharted lunar South Pole 11 years after ISRO's successful first lunar mission, Chandrayaan-1. Chandrayaan-2, on board the heavy lift rocket geosynchronous launch vehicle, that is GSLV Mark III, nicknamed Bahubali, would have taken 54 days to accomplish the task of landing on the moon.
A technical snag was observed in launch vehicle system at T-2 minutes. As a measure of abundant precaution, Chandrayaan-2 launch has been called off for today. Revised launch date will be announced later. Thank you very much. This is an announcement from ISRO which I have read out, that's all.
And the flood situation in Assam has worsened, with the death toll rising to 11 and affecting nearly over 26 lakh people across 28 districts. 4 deaths were reported from Jorhat and Dhubri and Barpata districts on Sunday. And of the 28 affected districts, Barpeta is the worst hit, with 7.35 lakh people affected, followed by Moregaon, Dhubri. Meanwhile, the NDRF and SDRF have rescued more than 7,000 people in the last 24 hours across the state. Brahmaputra River is flowing above the danger mark in many districts of the state. Meanwhile, at least 10,000 people of 2 districts of Tripura were also rendered homeless, and they were forced to take shelter in relief camps following floods caused by incessant rains for the last 2 days. Around 8,000 people have taken shelter in government buildings in West Tripura, and more than 2,000 people are staying in Khowai district camps. And Chief Minister Biplab Kumar Dev said that the government is closely monitoring the heavy rain situation and the officials are on high alert. And in Bihar, flood situation continues to be grim in northern and eastern parts. 4 people are dead and around 18 lakh people in 9 districts have been affected by the fury of the floods. 5 rivers in the state are flowing above the danger level due to torrential rains in the catchment areas bordering Nepal. NDRF, SDRF and SSB teams have been pressed into service for relief and rescue operations. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar conducted an aerial survey of the flood-affected areas of several districts and also held a high-level meeting to review the flood situation. And the Patna Met Center has forecast more rain with thunderstorms at many places in Bihar in the next 4 days as well. Big story coming in from Himachal Pradesh, where at least 8 people, including 7 army personnel, were killed and 28 others were injured after a 4-story building collapsed in Himachal Pradesh's Solan district on Monday. The building, located on the Nahan-Kamarhati road, housed a restaurant and it collapsed amid heavy rains in the area. Officials said that at least 7 persons are still feared trapped under the debris. According to Solan Deputy Commissioner, at least 42 people were trapped under the rubble of the collapsed building, of which 28, including 17 army personnel and 11 civilians, have been rescued. The Indian Army, CRPF and police initially carried out the rescue operation, and Chief Minister Jairam Thakur has also ordered an inquiry into the incident. The Supreme Court today agreed to hear plea of 5 more rebel Congress MLAs along with the pending petition of 10 legislators seeking a direction to the Karnataka Assembly Speaker to accept their resignation. Now, a bench headed by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi took note of the submission of a senior advocate, Mukul Rohtagi, who is appearing for the MLAs, that they also be made parties to the pending petition, which is to be heard on Tuesday. 5 more Congress MLAs from Karnataka have moved the apex court on 13th of July against the Speaker not accepting their resignations. The apex court had on 12th of July restrained the Speaker, K.R. Ramesh Kumar, from taking any decision till 16th of July on the resignation and disqualification of the 10 rebel MLAs of the ruling Congress-JDS coalition. Meanwhile, in another development, BJP has demanded the Chief Minister, that is H.D. Kumaraswamy's resignation or seek a trust vote today itself. London witnessed another nail-biting finish at Wimbledon as well, where Novak Djokovic clinched his 5th men's singles title after beating 8 times champion and grassroots specialist Roger Federer. Djokovic became the first man in 71 years to win Wimbledon after facing match points in the final, coming back to beat Federer in an unprecedented 5-set tiebreaker which lasted for nearly 5 hours. And with the latest win, Djokovic now has 16 Grand Slam trophies in his kitty, moving him closer to Federer, who has 20, and Rafael Nadal, who has 18 of them. And more sports news, Indian wrestler Vinesh Bogata has won a gold in the 53-kilogram category at Yagardogo International in Istanbul. Bogata beat her Russian opponent Ekaterina Poleshchuk 9-5 in the final match to bag the gold medal. It was a 3rd gold in the women's competition for India after Seema in 50-kilogram category and Manju in 59 kg category triumphed in their respective categories. And that's it in this edition of Midday News. Thanks for watching.